Okay, so welcome back. In this video, I will be teaching you guys how to CAD out that crankshaft. Now, this crankshaft, it does look really complicated, right? Looks like a lot of work. But what you're going to see here is you're actually going to be very surprised that the actual amount of sketching and extruding we do is going to be very minimal. We're going to take advantage of the tool's mirror and rectangular pattern that we previously learned to actually create this entire crankshaft. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a sketch. This, once again, is going to be on our XZ plane, so blue and red axes. So we're going to first just create a circle in the very center, 65 millimeters. And have that done. That's all we have for this sketch. We're going to go ahead and finish sketch and extrude this out by negative 27.5 millimeters. Once again, that's negative 27.5 millimeters. Now you should have a cylinder, right? Very simple to start off. Next step, create another sketch, not on the axes, but on the face of the cylinder, in the direction that you just extruded it. You're going to click that face and it will take you to this 2D sketching plane. And now this part just gets a little bit tricky. We're going to be using a few new tools. So just follow along closely. So first thing we're going to do, create a circle on the same center. That's going to be 100 millimeters. Next, we're going to be creating a circle on this vertical axis. Once again, make sure it's not floating around here. It should snap to that vertical axis. And just click to set the center, and we're going to make that 87.5 millimeters. Awesome. So once we have that done, we're going to do a quick sketch dimension from the center of this circle to the center of our 100 millimeter circle. Should drag out a dimension, and we want that to be a total of 65 millimeters. Okay. So once we have that done, we're going to be drawing two lines. And right now, all we're going to focus on is just make sure that the lines are on the circumference of the circle, right? And your cursor should turn into a green X once it's on the circumference of that circle. So anywhere on the circumference, we're going to click, and same thing on the other circle, and draw that line. Once again, same thing on the other side, on the circumference, on circumference. Two lines there. So one really important thing in CAD is that you don't have to be super accurate in your initial sketches because we have all these tools up here to help us make our sketches really accurate in the end. So we're going to use this new tool called tangent. Basically makes a line tangent to some outer edge. So we're going to hit tangent. And the way we use this is we're going to hit our line at the outer edge of a circle, and you can see it just made the line tangent to that circle. I'm just going to do this 3 more times. So line, outer edge of the circle, line, outer edge, line, outer edge. And that is all we have to do there. Now you may have noticed that in the process of making these lines tangent, something strange happened. Our center is no longer centered at this axis, which is pretty normal. I'm pretty sure most of you guys are going to encounter the same thing. So what we're going to do here is we're going to sketch a new line from the center of our first circle, so this 100 millimeter circle, just straight up 90 degrees. Doesn't matter how long, just straight up 90 degrees. So next we're going to use another constraint tool called coincident. Now this just takes any 2 point or edges and makes them intersect each other, which is what we want here. So we're going to take the center of our circle and make that coincident with this line that we just drew. And now you can see that just helped make the center of the circle align with that vertical axis again. Now that we have that done, we have no more use for this line, so we're just going to go ahead and click and hit delete. Now, we'll notice again that inside we have a lot of unnecessary lines in here, and when we hover our mouse over our sketch, it's broken into a lot of different profiles. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use our trim tool and just trim away everything on the inside here. So all of these unnecessary edges inside. And once you have all that gone, once you hover your mouse over, it should highlight the entire profile, kind of an egg-shaped profile altogether. Once you have that done, you can go ahead and finish your sketch, and we will be extruding this sketch. Once again, hit extrude, and it's going to split up the original circle that we sketched and this outer egg shape. We're going to want to hit both, select both, and we're going to extrude that out 20 millimeters. Once again, that's 20 millimeters, and hit OK. Now, next up, we're going to create another sketch on this face that we just extruded out. And this time, it's going to be very simple. We're just creating a circle. And this circle is going to be centered where our previous circle was centered. What that means is we're just going to search on this axis until it's around that center point, and your cursor should turn into a green circle. If you can't find that, all you have to do is use the include intersect geometry, click the face, and hit OK. And you should see where your previous circle was centered. That might make it easier to find. We're just going to center at that point. And we want this circle to be 65 millimeters in diameter. Okay, once you have that done, you're completely finished with this sketch. We're going to finish, and we're going to extrude that one out 25 millimeters. And hit OK. Now, we are approaching our fourth and final sketch and extrude before we're able to construct our crankshaft. So where this sketch is going to go is actually on one of our planes. So not the faces this time, one of the planes. And this will be your ZY plane. So the blue and green plane. Now we're going to use something that we use for our piston head. We want to see a 2D cross section. So we're going to slice our sketch. It should look something like this. Now, we're going to have to use a lot of existing geometry on here, right? But Fusion 360 doesn't know to automatically include that. So we're going to have to use a lot of inclusion tools to make sure that we can constrain our sketch to the geometry we want. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to include the intersect of this rectangle at the top and this rectangle at the bottom. We're going to hit OK. And you should see a couple of edges or corners are going to pop up there. Next, we're going to go into our drop-down, project/include, choose project. Or you can use the keyboard shortcut P and it'll bring it up. And all we want is this edge and the corner, this edge, and this corner here. Okay? And then we're going to hit OK. So once we have these three corners showing up on both top and bottom, that's all we need for this sketch. Okay, so now we're going to be using a new tool called the 3-point arc. Now, if you don't have this in your toolbar, you can find that in the drop-down menu, arc, and hit 3-point arc. Okay? And once you hit that, what 3-point arc means is that the first 2 points is the beginning and end of your arc. So we're going to select this corner, highlighted in purple, and this edge for our ending point. And make sure you don't select the midpoint. That's going to create some issues later. Make sure you're on the edge, maybe closer to the right side. Once you click that, you drag out, and you can see an arc is created. And just make sure you put it somewhere on the outside here. It doesn't matter exactly where. We can fix that later. Same thing on the other side. This purple corner on the edge. Once again, don't put it in the midpoint, somewhere closer to the left side, and drag it out somewhere out here. Now that we have those two arcs done, we can begin constraining them to what we want. So we're going to create a sketch dimension between the end of this arc and our vertex right there. And we're going to want to make that 6 millimeters. And then we're going to use our tangent tool to make the arc tangent to this edge, just like that. Same thing on the other side. We're going to constrain the end of our arc to this purple vertex. We want that 10 millimeters away. And we're going to make this arc tangent using our tangent tool to this edge. Okay? So feel free to pause there if you're not finished with that yet. I did go a little bit fast, and this is a new tool. But once you have that done, we're going to finish our sketch, and we're going to extrude. So we're going to select both contours. The bottom one, you might have to shift your view a little bit to select. Once you have both of them selected, we want to make sure it's extruded 2 sides, and the extent should be all the way through for both sides. We want to make sure it's cutting away material. It should be highlighted in red. Also, you don't have to choose extent all. You can do a certain distance. The only thing we want to make sure of is that it's cutting through all the material. Once you have that done, you're going to click OK. And taking a side view, you can see that it just thinned out our crankshaft linkage just a tiny little bit. So once we have that done, we have completed all the CADing we're going to have to do for our crankshaft. Pretty surprising, right? Crankshaft is this big long piece, and we've done most of the CADing we need at this point in time. And you'll see why soon. So at this point in time, we're going to be doing a lot of, I guess you could call it copy and pasting within CAD using our mirror tool and our rectangular pattern tool. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our mirror tool. And you can either select features or bodies. Either work. For features, you're going to have to select all the features we've had up to this point. So all 4 of those. And if you instead choose bodies, just select this entire body, which might be a little bit easier. Next, our mirror plane is going to be, let's look to the back here, this corner right here, or this cylindrical face right there. Once you selected that, you should hit OK. Might take a little while to load, and it is going to look a little something like this. Now, before we use our rectangular pattern to create 4 copies of this linkage, we are going to do a little bit of touching up with our fillet so that we don't have to do it a lot afterwards. So our fillet is copy pasted along with the rest. I'm just going to do a quick little fillet on these edges. So in total, it's going to be around 8 edges, or actually 8 selections, 24 edges right here. So once you have those 24 edges selected, we're just going to do a 2 millimeter fillet and hit enter. That just kind of smoothed out the edges for us. So once we have our fillet done, we are ready to use our rectangular pattern. So we're going to go ahead up to the top, rectangular pattern, and we're going to make a pattern with bodies. The bodies we're going to select are going to be these 2. Make sure our direction is in the Y direction. So that green axis, once again, make sure the distance type is spacing. And for a V-8 engine, we're going to want 4 of these linkages because we're going to have 2 piston heads per linkage. And 2 times 4 would be 8 for our V-8 engine. Now, for our distance, we want this to be negative 145 millimeters. Once we have that, you'll see that a little silhouette popped up for our entire crankshaft, and then we're just going to go ahead and hit OK. So at this point in time, we have everything, or we have most of our crankshaft done. So you can see it went really quick. From that one linkage that we have, we did 1 mirror, a fillet, and a rectangular tool, and it has created an entire crankshaft for us. So that's the power of using these copy-paste functionalities in Fusion 360. So next up, we're just going to extend these cylinders on the edge a little bit. So I'm going to go and create a sketch on the edges. So first thing we're going to do on this edge, we're going to create a circle centered at the same spot, 65mm diameter. Go ahead and finish that sketch. And we're just going to extrude that out a little bit, 10mm. We're going to head over to the other side, do the exact same thing. So sketch on this face, circle centered at the exact same spot, and we're going to do that for another 65mm. Finish our sketch and extrude this for 10mm. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. As you can see now, this very end part is just extended out a little bit. And that's just to fit into our engine housing. Now, finally, we're going to create a handle for our crankshaft. This will be the final piece before we put on our finishing touches. So the way we're going to create this handle is, once again, we're going to create another sketch. We're going to make it on this face right here. And we're going to do something similar to what we did for this egg shape on the linkage. We're going to first create a circle centered at the same spot once again for 65mm. And we're going to create another circle centered on this vertical axis. Okay, so not around here, snapped onto that vertical axis. We want that to be diameter of 25mm. Now we're going to make a dimensional constraint between the two centers. We want them to be 100mm apart, which somehow I did perfectly. So once we have that constraint in, we're going to draw lines once again. And these lines are just going to be on the outer circumference of both of these circles. Just like before, doesn't matter exactly where they are because we can fix that later. Just make sure they're on the circumference of the circles. So now that we have that, we're going to use our tangent tool and make these lines tangent to the outside of our circles. Lines tangent to the outside of the circles. Just going to click the line, click the circumference, click the line, click the circumference. Do that 4 times. And now we still want to make sure that this handle is centered. So once again, we're going to create a line from the very center, 90 degrees downwards. And we're going to use our coincident tool to make sure that this 25mm diameter circle is coincident with that line. So it's centered on the axis. Once we have that done, we don't need this line anymore, so we can click it and hit delete. So at this point in time, we are finished with our sketch. So we can go ahead and finish sketch and begin extruding. So the first selection for our extrusion is going to be everything but this smaller circle. So both of these profiles, just not the smaller circle. We're going to extrude that out 20mm. Now once we extrude it out, you'll see that this sketch disappears, which is totally fine because we can find that in our sketches folder. It would be our most recent sketch. Click the eyeball icon so that we can see it again. Once we can see that, we're going to extrude the smaller circle out to 55mm. You'll see this looks somewhat like a handle. Once we're done using that sketch, we don't want to see it anymore. So we're going to click that eyeball, make it disappear from our view. So now, once we have that handle done, we are basically done with all of the catting that goes into this crankshaft. We're just going to have to put some final rotations and finishing touches. As you can see, this is the end goal. We want to make sure that 2 of these linkages are rotated 120 degrees away from these other 2. And to do that, first we're going to have to create an axis of rotation, and then we're going to use this move/copy tool, which is a new tool you guys are going to be learning right now. Very, very useful. So to create this axis of rotation, we're going to go to Construct, bring the drop-down menu down. We're going to select Axis through Cylinder/Cone/Torus. This axis right here. Hit that. And we're just going to select this cylindrical contour right here. And it's going to create a really small axis there. It's not super noticeable, but that's all we need. And once that axis is created, we're going to hit OK. Now, before we rotate, we have to combine some of our bodies. So if you go to your bodies folder, you'll notice that there's 8 separate bodies in this CAD. And we want to make sure that there's only 4 linkages, right? So we're going to have to use this combine tool to make sure that these 8 are combined into groups of 2. So how that works is we're going to hit combine, and we're going to do body 1, body 2, operation join, and we're going to hit OK. And you can see that those 2 combine. So we're going to do the same for all the rest. So body 3. And you're going to have to search around for which bodies should be together. In this case, it would be for me, body 3 and body 6. I'm going to hit combine, body 3, body 6. Body 3 and body 6. I'm going to hit OK. We're just going to go through all of them the same way. So body 4 would be with body 7. Hit OK. And we're going to go body 5 and body 8. And hit OK. So now that we only have 4 bodies here, we're going to use our Move/Copy tool to rotate those bodies. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Move/Copy, and we're going to click this body here, skip one, and then the body over. The option we're going to choose is not free move, but rotate. And we're going to have to select an axis. Now, this axis that we're selecting is just going to be the one that we just created, right? So it's really small right here. But find a way to click that axis. Once you have that selected, a little rotation tool is going to pop up. Make sure you have correctly selected that axis. Okay. Once you have all that selected, we're going to rotate these to -120 degrees, like so. And then we're going to hit OK. Now, once we have this done, this is the final touch on our crankshaft. And congratulations, you are finished CADing the crankshaft. So I know it was a lot of work this time. We CADed our connecting rod cap, and the crankshaft. But this just shows that you guys are getting a lot better at CAD. You're able to do all of this. And now we're moving on to actually putting all these together in class 3. And it's going to look really cool. You're going to be able to see how all these parts fit together and move in an actual engine. So remember, your homework was to just watch these videos, get caught up on CADing your crankshaft and connecting rod. And number 2, CAD the best wheel rim possible. So get those done, and I look forward to seeing you in class 3.